I have a confession. When I graduated high school, I didn't just graduate with a certificate, but I graduated with no friends. And no, I didn't graduate with no friends because I never had any. In fact, I had plenty of friends. But I lost them throughout time. How did I lose them throughout time? So I had a very big group of friends. And throughout time, one after the other, our friendship kept falling apart. Till I reached my graduation day. And they called my name, and no one's clapping, and no one was there. So how did I reach to this point? Fellow Toastmasters and distinguished guests, good evening.
Good evening.
The thing that made me reach to this point is the fact that I had zero conflict resolution skills. So you see, conflicts are part of human relationships. We have conflicts every day. We have conflicts with our siblings, we have conflicts with our friends, we have conflicts with our lovers, our husbands, wives, we have conflicts at work, client, manager, whatever. Conflict is part of any human interaction. Yet, I, as Faisal, didn't know how to deal with it. And that cost me a lot. It cost me my friendships. I had friends, or I was very lucky to have a very big group of friends at a very young age. And these people I had always imagined I would spend the rest of my life with. These people were the people throughout my childhood who I laughed with, who I played with, who I shared the same jokes, who I took the same classes with. We would sit together in a room and always dream of impossible things that realistically would never happen in the future, but we always dreamt of it while doing it together. Yet, that friendship never lasted that long for us to do any of that. And why did that happen? You see, at the time, young Faisal had the problem. He used to think that whenever you have a conflict, the best thing you do is you disappear. You disappear, and you let the other person figure out that you're missing, or you stop replying to them, or you stop calling them, and so on. And then that person has to figure that something is wrong, and they would reach out back to me and tell me that something is wrong, and they would try to solve the conflict. This was my conflict resolution skills, and this was the thing that I used to do. It's a thing, by the way, that a lot of people do. When we're faced with conflict, we think it's this de-escalation. We avoid the person, and we think this way we're de-escalating the conflict. Yet, avoidance throughout time, or being quiet throughout time, only just makes the problem bigger and bigger. So that's something I never learned. Now you see, this very, very harsh way, or this very harsh thing, taught me a couple of lessons. A couple of lessons that I would like to share with you today on how to deal with conflict resolutions. There are 3 steps, and I would suggest you follow them so you don't end up one day with no friends at all. So I would start with step number 1. De-escalate before you resolve. So this is the thing that Faisal did. The young Faisal used to think he was de-escalating when he avoided the person and never reached back. I used to wait for the other person to come to reach out to me. So I would not reach out to my friend, and I would go back to school and think that they would reach out to me or speak to me. And every day I would go there, carrying my bag and thinking, they're going to come now and talk to me. Or every Thursday, as a kid, I used to, every Thursday, go back from school. I used to get plenty of phone calls, It was like I was waiting for the moment where my phone would ring, and then it didn't ring. So this is not what I mean by de-escalate. In fact, during conflict, we often are very fired up in our emotions. Our emotions are very heavy. And I don't recommend responding when your emotions are heavy, because emotions can blur out your critical thinking, and that's right. But if you want to de-escalate, don't lose connection with the other party. De-escalation is something such as, we'll talk about it later, and actually talking about it later, not avoiding the subject. It's something like minding your tone. And by minding your tone, you don't have to respond in a cold tone. You have to respond in a calm one, or one that is there to resolve the conflict and show interest still in the person. Step number 2, replace assumptions with curiosity. What young Faisal did was he always made assumptions about the other party. He never asked, why did you do this? What is your perspective, or what made you do this thing? or what is your point of view in taking that decision? That is something, or this is a very good question. I believe if we as humans tend to ask each other, it would solve or save most of our relationships. And yes, this is a question I believe, I'm not married, but I believe married couples should have it always in mind, because from what I've seen, the more major conflicts, they always happen because the first party doesn't want to understand the other party's perspective. They're always thinking from their side. But if you ever, or they assume stuff and they never ask. But if you try to ask and try to put yourself in the shoes of the other person, maybe you'd have a different perspective. Step number 3, resolve the problem, not your ego. So what young Faisal used to do was, he used to think everything was an ego. When I had a conflict with a person, I used to think there is a winner and there is a loser. And I need to be that winner. I cannot or I will not back down. I will not back down from whatever my decision is. And I will always, always try to be the winner of that conflict or the winner of that argument. But that is not correct. That thinking made me lose my relationships. The truth is, you're always, always trying to win the conflict. And yes, it means giving away some of the stuff that you want. It's not a take it all. You can never take it all. You need to give the other party some stuff, and you need to give them some room to share their ideas and understand where they're coming from. So it's not about winning or losing. It's not about your ego. It's about solving the problem. Now you see, these 3 lessons are 3 steps that you can always take with you home to resolve any conflict. Whenever you're facing a conflict, take a deep breath, think about it calmly, talk to the person, understand their perspective, and don't try to be the winner of the argument. Try to be the winner of the relationship. Now, I'll tell you, I still have conflicts in my everyday life. Here at Toastmasters, we have conflicts always. In fact, we as the XCOM always have conflicts, but our conflicts are related to food mainly. Even though the conflict starts with sports, yet it ends up, what are we having for dinner today? That is how our conflicts usually go. But Toastmaster of the day, before I hand you over the stage, there is one conflict I couldn't solve with Toastmasters. Who is paying the bill? Everyone wants to pay the bill every time. Thank you. And if you find the answer, please let me know, Toastmaster of the day. Thank you.